The main ones for the German sedan were aspirated engines with a volume of 1.6 and 1.8. They are almost identical to each other. The 1.6-liter engine has existed since 1998, Opel Astra G, and was modernized 6 years later, and the 1.8-liter unit since 2003, Opel Vectra C. In this form they existed until 2012 to 2013, during which time they only underwent minor modifications to comply with the Euro 5 environmental standard. There can be no complaints about the quality of the power units. They are very reliable and quite economical. They can easily cover several 100,000 kilometers. Taking into account the absence of hydraulic compensators on such engines, after a run of 120 to 150,000 kilometers, it is recommended to check the thermal clearances. They can be adjusted by selecting calibrated pushers. In many cases, a lifespan of heat exchanger gaskets is about 150,000 kilometers, after which they need to be changed, and it is better to avoid oil leaks. Otherwise, cleaning the entire cooling system cannot be avoided. For those who deal mainly with suburban driving, the service life of the gaskets will be significantly longer. The thermostat is not very reliable, requiring replacement after an average of 50,000 kilometers. Its cost is $70 for the original. Failure to change the oil and spark plugs on time can lead to problems with the phase shifter clutch and modular coil, respectively. The latter costs $110, or almost 40 times more expensive than a spark plug. For the older engine, the intake system has variable geometry. Meanwhile, the output of engines of 115 and 140 horses for such a large car as the Insignia is too weak, and the lack of automatic versions limited the choice. In addition, the 6-speed M32 manual transmission from Opel cannot boast of a high level of reliability. An impressive selection of turbocharged engines was also offered for the model, in particular a 1.6-liter turbo engine, A16 LET, which had distributed injection, and gave way in 2013 to a similar engine with direct fuel injection. For the older engine, a manual transmission was used, and for the new one, an automatic transmission was available to choose from. The quality of both left much to be desired. For example, on an old turbo engine, even during the factory warranty period, the piston of the last cylinder could easily collapse, and the cylinder head could crack under the influence of high temperatures. The 1.6 CD turbo, which replaced it, retained its tendency to destroy the piston, and also received a tendency to quickly stretch the timing chain. All this was complemented by rapid contamination of the injection pump and the fuel system as a whole. Not everything was fine with the operation of the turbine. It is not surprising that the engine in the Opel Insignia lasted less than 2 years, but hydraulic compensators for turbocharged engines eliminated the need to manually adjust thermal clearances. In the middle, the Opel Insignia appeared with a 1.4-liter A14 net turbo engine, but this power unit was no more reliable than its predecessors and remained virtually unknown on the Russian market. The last piston falling apart, the timing chain still under warranty, capricious crankcase ventilation, all these are typical problems with the engine in question. Among the 2.0-liter Insignia engines, there are no naturally aspirated ones. The basis for them was the gasoline 2.0-liter Z20 net turbo engine, known from the Opel Vectra C and Saab 9-3. Thanks to direct injection and a powerful Borg-Warner turbine, the engine produced 220 or 250 horsepower, depending on the version. The original oil offered by the manufacturer with drain intervals of 15,000 kilometers simply killed the engine, compressor and solenoid valves. Often, after 100,000 kilometers, the engine had to be overhauled or simply thrown away for replacement. Changing the timing chain and balancers was necessary after 150,000 mileage, and a very reliable fuel injection pump did not save us from rapid contamination of the injectors. The best of the gasoline options was the 2.8-liter turbo engine, which has no serious performance drawbacks, and in terms of fuel efficiency is not much inferior to its smaller brethren. This engine had an output of 260 horsepower, and especially for the Insignia OPC in 2009 it was boosted to 325 horsepower. The main thing in the engine is to change the timing chain in a timely manner, change the oil in a timely manner, and prevent the cooling system from deteriorating. In this case, the engine will be able to operate 300,000 kilometers without repair. Heavy fuel engines are represented by a 2.0-liter diesel engine with several power options, 110 to 195 horsepower. In the latter case, the engine has 2 turbines at once. The model is based on the work of Italian motorists, but the transition to a volume of 2.0 liters had a negative impact on the reliability of the power plant. Reduced pressure in the lubrication system accelerates wear and the risk of engine seizure and the risk of crankshaft failure. Often, owners of German cars independently retrofitted the engine with an oil pressure indicator and changed the oil pump pressure reducing valve. The reliability situation improved only after the appearance of 2.0 CDTI, but this important event for the model occurred only after the restyling of the first-generation car. A big rarity for Russia is the Opel Insignia with a 1.6-liter diesel engine. Such sedans appeared in the country from the European secondary market. The engine received factory defects in the manufacture of the hydraulic chain tensioner, as a result of which problems began after 30,000 kilometers. The destruction of the tensioners led to the chain falling off and almost guaranteed damage to the motor without the possibility of repair. At higher mileage, the timing chain stretched with distortion and serious consequences for the engine. The timing drive is located very inconveniently, and to change it you must first dismantle the gearbox. Thus, only naturally aspirated Opel Insignia units have no problems, but their serious drawback is insufficient power. As for turbo engines combined with an automatic transmission, each of them can bring a lot of trouble to owners. It is worth noting that some engines are adapted to Euro 5 standards, indexes with the letter A, and some to Euro 6 indexes with the letter B. For the latter, AdBlue injection is additionally used. The 6-speed manual M32 has become the basic type of transmission for naturally aspirated gasoline and low-power diesel engines. Its main problem is accelerated wear of the support bearings, rear, of the driven shafts. The result is a buzzing or vibration on the lever when accelerating or braking. The engineers were able to cope with the problems only with an updated version of the transmission used on sedans since 2012. For more powerful engines and a 2.0 CDTI diesel engine with a performance of 120 horses, the F40 mechanics is used. In general, this is a reliable unit that allows you to not have any problems for a long time, but experts recommend changing the transmission oil after every 50 kilometers to extend the life of the manual transmission. In total, 3 automatic transmission options were used for the sedan. For turbocharged gasoline and diesel engines, an Aisin TF80 SC automatic transmission under the designation AF40 with 6 gears was used, which turned out to be very reliable. Provided you regularly change the oil at intervals of 50,000 kilometers, the transmission will last a long time and without problems. Since mid-2013, the transmission has been replaced with a new 6T70 automatic transmission, created as a result of the joint work of General Motors and Ford engineers. It was used in tandem with 2.0-liter gasoline engines. The box turned out to be very successful, capable of serving up to 300,000 kilometers. At the same time, a 6T45 automatic transmission was offered for the 1.6-liter turbo engine, and in 2015 it was combined with a 136-liter diesel engine. This automatic appeared on General Motors cars in 2007, causing a lot of criticism. Subsequently, it was modernized twice in order to increase reliability, and improved, less problematic versions of the transmission appeared on the Insignia. In general, the automatic transmissions of the German sedan, although not ideal, are quite suitable for use. The most powerful sedans have an all-wheel drive chassis with a Haldex multi-plate clutch. In particular, the Insignia OPC was offered to buyers with a non-alternative drive on both axles. On average, after 30 to 40,000 kilometers, the clutch requires an oil change to prevent premature wear and failure of the electric pump and ECU. The presence of problems can be indicated by the appearance of a crunching sound during sharp turns at minimum speed and slight jerking during sharp accelerations. On charged sedans produced before the end of the first half of 2013, the clutch had defective firmware, so it failed earlier than expected. With a mileage of 150 to 200,000, the electric pump will require a motor change, since severe wear on the brushes may also damage the commutator. At the front, the sedan uses a traditional McPherson with a single triangular-shaped lever. For the OPC version, intended for high-speed driving, the suspension has undergone significant modifications. For example, the shock absorber strut does not move simultaneously with the turn of the fist. The latter is connected to the rack and the lever by means of 2 pins. As a result, the difference lies in the lower arm. Its hyperstrut suspension is mounted using bushings rather than traditional ball joints. You can purchase them separately, like the upper kingpin, and there are quite a lot of analogs on the market in different price ranges. In general, their level of reliability is generally quite high, allowing them to travel up to 100,000 kilometers. If the car's standard shock absorbers were passive, then for expensive trim levels, flex ride shock absorbers classified as active were offered as an option. It is curious that the rods used for them are plastic and metal, respectively. The former are not very reliable, and in most cases they do not last more than 50,000 kilometers. If desired, they can be replaced with metal, but analog rods. The bushings on the stabilizer rods also wear out quickly, but being consumables they are sold on the market without any problems. The problem with flex ride shock absorbers is the poor location of the electrical wiring. So often after winter problems with their performance begin, which is signaled by the electronics by activating the most severe of the existing modes. In most cases, the wires break near the rear wheel locker on the left side. Shock absorber leaks are also possible after 5 to 7 years of service. In some cases, they can be repaired, while a new shock absorber costs $500 $550 on the market, depending on the axle. For passive shock absorbers, the price tag is 3 times more affordable, not counting numerous analogs with an even more affordable price. As an option for the Insignia station wagon, shock absorbers with variable ground clearance are available, the cost of which on the market is even higher and amounts to at least $600. For models with front axle drive, the rear uses a 4-link suspension, while all-wheel drive versions have 3 arms, of which the lower one is shaped like the letter H. The quality of the suspension is good. It easily copes with road conditions and requires repair and replacement of individual elements after a run of 100,000 kilometers. A wide variety of power steering was used for the model, from traditional hydraulics to all-electric drives. The reliability margin of steering racks is on average about 150,000 kilometers, and a hydraulic booster requires less attention. In fact, problems can only arise with leaks of hydraulic fluid, the change of which is recommended after every 50,000 kilometers. Otherwise, problems with the performance of the pump may occur. The steering rack itself, which is also used on other Opel cars, is characterized by special cases of moisture penetration, resulting in failure of the torque sensor. You can restore its functionality by cleaning and soldering the contacts. For all-wheel drive Opel Insignia with a mileage of 100,000 kilometers or more, the problem may be the drive shaft, in particular the destruction of the front cross bearing. An imbalance in its operation leads to an increase in vibrations and impacts on the outboard bearings. The cardan is generally repairable, so another expensive purchase can be avoided.